In my grandfather in Italy and his family, their tradition thing was wine and olive oil. My grandfather and grandmother, Giuseppe and Maria Sergi, migrated to Australia in 1952. They stayed in Sydney for about a month. There wasn't much work there. My grandfather had his brother here, Francesco Sergi, that already come to the Riverina, and there was plenty of work here. So they migrated to the Riverina area. So they started working here for a few years until they had enough money to buy the farm where the winery is now. It started in 1968 here. Him and my father, Antonio Sergi, that worked together for many years. My father, Antonio, used to travel 1,500 kilometres to go to northern Queensland to sell the wine to mainly farmers and tobacco growers, cane growers, to the majority of the Italian people who used to love their red wine because that was a heritage thing. And he used to sell it all up there in 200-litre barrels. My father started a cellar door here at the winery in 1969. He used to sell the wine in 2-litre flagons. He had a range of reds, mainly claret, it was called back in them days, and fortified wines like brown muskets, cream sherry, blackberry masala, all that type of wine. It was the in thing in them days. When we started the winery in 1968, I was 5 years old, and I used to follow my dad around everywhere. I used to love farming, I used to love tractors, I used to love machinery. So my dad used to give me little odd duties to do. I remember we used to unload, not me, but my dad used to pitchfork the grapes off the truck into a hopper to get crushed. Then it'd go into a must tank, and the refrigeration wasn't around like now. The refrigeration was blocks of ice back then in open fermenter tanks. Then we used to drain it after fermentation and then squeeze the seeds and the skins through a press, just a hand, all manual press. Then after fermentation, I used to follow my dad all the time, and I used to watch him go and get the flask and get a sample out of the wine that's just been fermented. And I used to try and swiggle the glass like he did and taste the wines. Then we'd filter all our wines, get it ready for bottling, and that was all done all by hand as well, manually, just by little hand taps, and labels used to go on by hand, and we used to cork them by hand. On the farm 1305, where the winery is now, we used to have vineyards when the winery was in a smaller scale. Then the winery did grow, and we had to move on and look for more land to plant our own vineyards, which was mainly Shiraz that we had here at the winery. Then we needed more varieties, so we moved on and we bought the first farm in 1989. We planted Shiraz, Cabernet, Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, and so on. But they were the main varieties for them days. Then we moved on to another block, farm 1164, and we continued planting. Then the sales got better and bigger, so we moved on to a bigger farm in Yenda, which was 1,600 acres. So we had to plant that as well, and that was in 1995, and we managed to plant it in 12 months. As our Italian heritage, we wanted to plant some Italian varieties on one of the farms, and we picked the farm 1164, and that's where the 1164 brand comes from. The Montepulciano, Giriffe, Lambrusco and Lagrange. We started exporting in the early 90s, mainly to the UK. Now we're in China, Japan, Thailand, we're in the Philippines, New Zealand, Germany and America. We're around 30 countries we're exporting at the moment. We are in our 50 years of winemaking, and now we are in our 4th generation, and we've come this far because the family has stuck together and worked very hard. From when my grandfather started, it was a family-owned business, and today it's still a family-owned business. And we hope that it is a family-owned business for the next 50 years.
Thanks to my great-grandfather Giuseppe and my grandfather Antonio for their hard work and passion. Here we are well over 50 years with 4 generations in the making. Warburn Estate is one of Australia's top 10 wine producers and exports to almost 30 countries. The fourth generation work within the winery. I work in marketing. My oldest sister Angela works in export. My brother Tony works in sales. My younger sister works in admin. And my cousin Tony works in the lab. We're all here working hard to continue the family tradition of making wine and most of all to support future generations here at Walburn Estate.